One thing to get off the TSM topic would be just NA as a whole, right? Like, this is probably one of the worst performances NA's always ever had. Second year that no teams made it out of groups. Didn't
It's
even.
also a bad group draw in general, though. Like, aside from TSM, everyone else was somewhat fucked. Like, it's actually amazing TL was that close to getting out. Like, props. Like, I didn't think they had any chance in that group.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think is the most glaring thing when you look at NA Yamato in terms of like, oh, this is like the reason that they're losing? Because everyone just cites a million things every single time. They're like, oh, well, it's our structure. Oh, it's the ping. We don't have the player base. It's like our imports aren't like able to work as hard because we get washed up players. The scouting system sucks. The management's like, everyone just says a million things. Do you have anything that you're just like, no? This is the main thing that I see.
I think there's plenty of reasons, a lot of reasons. I think, first and foremost, when people speak about NA, I still think there are organizations like Team Liquid and Cloud9 that are doing, a lot of good decisions. I think it's very difficult to win back-to-back splits, and then after dropping and your star player not performing in the shape of double lift and then recovering that well and going to the World Championship. That is, props to Team Liquid and Cloud9 off seasons. They lose players, they bring back players. Now with the departure of Reaper, I'm sure they're going to figure something out too. So I think the conversation of North America needs to be specified to some of the other teams when it comes to the region. I don't think it's like everyone. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest issue to me is the coaching and the structure within organizations and the mentality that the lower tier organizations have. I've had the privilege of coaching teams that aren't, G2 and Fnatic. So my view has always been, what do I do to challenge G2 and Fnatic with less resources or less claim to players that have names like Reckless or Perks? What do? I need to take some risks. I need to be bold in my approach. I need to bring in players that haven't lost over and over again against the top players and expect some different miracle results. I need to be the one bringing in players that maybe in the end, they're going to be the ones playing in G2 and Fnatic, because this is just how Europe functions, right? The best players go over to G2 and Fnatic eventually because they are very aggressive in terms of how they acquire their players. And when I look at some of the lower tier,
I like that.
And when I look at some of the lower tier organizations in North America, they are not providing this challenge at all to the top. It's time and time again the same names that are winning the splits. And new names are showing up now, Tactical and Spica. I think these are names that we're going to see for a very long time. It's very, very easy to see so. And I think when it comes to the discussion of ping and player base, there are many examples of small populations being experts at specific things. Like the example that I always go to is the Republic of Dagestan and how many fighters are coming out of there.
All the wrestlers and stuff, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, all the wrestlers, they're absolutely like insane at it. And yes. I think there are many clear examples of, small populations being experts at something. And it all comes down to the culture and how they approach things. Sure, population matters, but that matters, I think, when every other variable is completely figured out. It makes things easier, but I don't think it can be used as an excuse. And I think also for the ping, I had the privilege of working with the Tunisian teams, and I know a lot of Arabic players. These are some guys that play like at 100, 150 ping, and they come from backgrounds where, in Arabic culture, like gaming is really frowned upon. Like it's like you have to become a doctor or an engineer, or you're like a failure. So it's like a very, very pressure-heavy culture. And some of the guys that I know, they are challenger in EU West, and they don't complain about anything. It's just an additional challenge that builds character when you want to, create and have better players. Ping. Yeah, 150 ping challenger.
Respect.
Arabic players. They're playing in Tunisia, in Egypt. They're playing in Arabic countries, and they are doing, well. They're doing bits on EU West. Sure, it matters. I understand that it matters, that the ping is not something that translates that well onto, the practice environment in terms of what you want to achieve. But they had the option of creating in-house, and this is an idea that died rather quickly. I don't know the details as to why, but if I was coaching in North America, I would push for this very, very heavily. Yes. I would chase for this, because I don't think it's a valid excuse unless they come out and say, this is why it didn't work.
Yes, you got to try everything that is there. Like that. By the way, one thing that ties into what you're saying, Yamato, is there's certain things you can complain about that are real. Like, for example, ping obviously will make it worse, but you also can't solve that problem right now. Like, we can't all just go live next to the server. So to me, it never makes sense to waste your time complaining about things you can't control. Like, the good thing about things like in-houses and mentality is we can start work on that now. Like, right this second. We can start using new approaches to that. Or, as you say, if it doesn't work, let's prove it doesn't work. Let's thoroughly test it, find out all the ways it doesn't work, and then go to the next solution.
Yep.
Well, just to add, to continue, I think the culture within teams, like I hear horror stories after horror stories from players that I know well about how the practice is approached. They're trying to cage in players and make practice mistake-free. And I think this is also a very, very big issue. I think the teams within the region, if a team suddenly said, I'm going to bring in 5 rookies no matter what, we're going to try to build something, we're going to try to shock the system, I would be like, okay, this is good. They're trying something different. They're not approaching the off-season and signing every name that they know and then like just filling the academy roster and then just like, oh, let's just throw our dice and just see what it lands, no thinking at all. And this is something that we see so frequently. I think it comes down to the approach of the organizations, the use of academy and how you use it in terms of the system. And I think inherently another problem is, I think the top end veterans, I think an AD carry that is coming up in Europe, and he gets to play against Perks, Reckless, and Karzi or whoever. Like Karzi is a good example.
There's loads of talent.
Upset. There's loads of talent, and being able to play against these sets a benchmark, right? This is what you want to reach and achieve. And the veterans that you have within your region also have a big impact on how the rookies become shaped, because this is what the practice is. The top end of the region is what every other team within that region is going to strive towards. When I was in Splice and we were practicing against G2, we were always chasing G2. This was we were learning so much from G2. They were the top dog, and pretty much a lot of what we did came from what they taught us, because this is the lens and the perspective that we see the game from. So when you begin to shock the system, the veterans begin to adapt, and then all of a sudden it's kind of a system that feeds itself. And I've pointed out the many issues that I find within the system, but I think there's so many things that need to be attacked. But I think if I had to choose one gun to head, what would you choose as the biggest issue? I just think culture and decision making within the teams that need to do something to shock the system. Like another one, FlyQuest did good this year. 2 finals, that's good. They had a new approach. They had this whole idea of SeaQuest and TreeQuest and so forth. That's exciting. They did something different. And I think you just need to do something different. Just keep doing the same shit and expect a different result. Of course, nothing's going to change.